is going to play Saturday.
He will play, it's not hypothetical.
Okay.
He had a good week of practice, full week of practice, moved around well. Was in the training room all week. Thursday is our 48-hour meeting with our medical staff, and which is where we get our pretty definitive idea of whether our guys are going to, be full strength, and everybody feels like he's going to be, good to go.
Does he have the insurance through the NCAA? Do you know if he does?
I don't know. It's a good question, and I haven't asked him about it, but I'll research it and let you know.
How does Lou handle being sidelined for a couple weeks? Is he?
He was
chopping
antsy
at the
last
bit?
week.
Yeah.
I think the first week he was okay, but he needs to be around the team. He's a guy that obviously football is so important to him, and he's close to finishing his degree, and so a lot of his focus is about being with his teammates and being around football. I think the first week was kind of a, hey, this is, some time off. The second week he was around, and he was on the sideline for this past weekend and was, into the ball game. So I think if you'd asked him, he's back to where he likes to be.
Safeties, Austin and Shoemate, how they?
Austin was cleared. Yep. He participated in non-contact activities yesterday. He was fully cleared today, so he'll be able to play on Saturday. It'll be Hardy and himself, Austin, with Shoemate and Farley. So those will be your four safeties.
Nothing lingering with Shoemate, no concern.
No, he looked good this week. Yeah, we were pleased with what he did this week, and he was able to cut it loose, and we were pleased.
Brian, you talked earlier in the week about how Lewis, when he was out, was able to work out and stuff like that. Are Ishak and or Kona able to do anything similar right now?
Ishak's in week 2, so this week, he started range of motion, specifically leg lifts, begin some strengthening. You don't want atrophy in the quad and that area, so in week 2, he begins a weight training regimen. Next week he'll begin running. So in the bye week, it will be a week for him to begin some cardio, some heavy cardio running. And our expectations is that he'll be practicing for BYU. As it relates to Kona, we put him in a cast. So he's in a cast for 10 days. We were more, I don't know if it's aggressive or conservative. I don't know what the medical terminology would be, but instead of putting him in a boot, we wanted to go 10 days to really shut that down, and we'll know when we take that cast off where we are with him. And if we've gotten the pain and inflammation out of there, we could be looking at something in the line of getting him back for BYU.
Are Chris Watt and Sheldon Day kind of in a full-time mode right now?
We are pleasantly surprised with Chris Watt. As you know, he couldn't play on Saturday, but I think we're all a bit surprised as to how well he's been able to. Once he got the swelling out of there and the pain, he's taken virtually all the first team reps, and he's done he's looked good in practice this week. Sheldon Day, as long as he doesn't, have somebody fall on that or tweak it, he should be able to help us on Saturday.
Brian, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but you would think Lewis could not play the entire game. So Tyler Stockton would be the guy that rotates in. Is that?
I think Jerron Jones.
Jerron Jones.
Yeah, I think Jerron would be your first guy that would get the action.
And how does he look at the nose?
Pretty good. I mean, he played pretty good against Navy. We were pleased with his play, and he's a big kid that we just need to continue to develop. But We feel like he can go in there and hold his own and contribute.
Do you think that could be maybe where he ends up later?
I'd say, standing here right now, that's a good possibility.
I don't want to lose 2,000.
Yeah, I know, you are projecting a little bit. You usually like to stay in the present.
Brian, this question has nothing to do with the last 2 weeks because you were playing option, but early in the season, you were real aggressive with your linebackers as far as rushing the quarterback and corners. Was that a decision? Did you go into the season saying we want to be more aggressive and attack a little bit more? Did you have to do that because maybe Tuitt wasn't quite where he is now? Did you back off of that because you didn't feel that that was the best way to approach it, or am I completely off base here with what?
I think if you look at, in particular, the Michigan game plan, we wanted to play a lot more man coverage because of Devin Gardner. We felt like we needed to be on body a lot more against them. So I think that was more of a plan of action, and I don't think we necessarily went away from it because of how the game went, as much as we continued to look at our personnel and figure out where we would be best suited. And we weren't getting the kind of pressure, from our front, so we had to go to plan B. I think we'd always, and defensively, our plan A has always been to try to get it out of that front four. And I think that's where we ended up the rest of the season, going back to where our pressures come from, those guys up front, instead of, going with pressure from backers.
Brian, can you talk about Mike Elston a little bit? He's had some challenges almost every year he's been here, trying to get Tuitt and Lynch up to speed when they were freshmen, and a lot of expectations this year with all the injuries. Talk about the job he's done.
Well, he probably has one of the most challenging jobs when you talk about defensive linemen, and the kids that he has in particular. He's got, if you take Lynch and Tuitt and Nix, these are guys that are going to be next level guys, right? And he's confronted with developing their talent level here, as well as keeping them grounded as they play for Notre Dame. I mean, that's a complex situation where attention to detail, going to class, because he's responsible for both on the practice field and off, and hitting them with the stick when they're not going to class and doing those things. So there's a lot on his plate other than getting them lined up right and executing the right pass rush technique. So the story here from Mike Elston is a Stephon Tuitt, from Georgia, coming out of a high school that doesn't normally predict to Notre Dame, and a Louis Nix that are going to get their degrees from Notre Dame. Has done a great job of having these young men assimilate and grow here at Notre Dame, not only on the field but off the field.
Coach, up here.
Yes.
There's a couple of big games nationally tonight, and college football, just like the NFL, is kind of morphed from not just Saturday, but Friday games, Thursday games.
I know that. I played on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. I've done this trip.
Right. Well, at Cincinnati, maybe you need to do that for exposure reasons. At Notre Dame, maybe it's not so applicable. But would you ever be open-minded to, like, hey, some network calls Notre Dame once a Thursday night game? I mean, what are your thoughts?
If we could play St. Joe's,
yeah, okay.
I'll play Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for your quote. I appreciate that.
Any time that I can play, a game of that sort, it's for us, it's driven certainly by our NBC contract. So that has a lot to do with it. Now being in the ACC, as you know, the ACC plays Friday night games. We've tried to stay away from that, being in that rotation, and I think we're going to be successful in being able to stay away from those Friday games. So No, I would like to stick with the Saturday format unless it's a primetime game, maybe an opener, where it pits Notre Dame versus, a marquee matchup where we would play on a Labor Day or something to that effect. But I think staying with the Saturdays, I've had enough of Tuesdays and Thursdays and those other days.
Thanks. Brian, I'm always curious when a young guy like Folston jumps up and maybe demands more playing time by his performance, how the people around him react to it. How have George and Amir reacted to kind of the challenge from Folston to take some of their reps?
Well, I think that's a fair question, and if your program is developing the players in the right way and things are in the right place, they respond in a positive way. And what I mean by a positive way is that they get in there and then they make every rep in practice count, because they can see that it's a very competitive situation. And I think they've done that. So I look at it as an extremely positive situation where they're in there and doing everything that they can to make certain that they're getting better as well. They're very competitive. All the guys that are here want to play, but I see it as a positive. I don't see it as a negative from those guys.
Coach, we're well into the football season, and Heinz Field is a cool arena to play in, but it's gotten a little beaten up at this point in the season with the Steelers and high school players and playing.
You've set this up for me
I'm so
again.
sorry.
Every week she does it.
I'm so sorry.
I want to answer the question, but I'm going to get in trouble. Go
I
ahead,
was just
finish it.
wondering, the week of practice leading into this game, the way you prepared, is it even a thought? Do you
Yeah,
have
we just
any
went on
plan?
our stadium.
I know. I just couldn't help myself. I tried so bad.
I've been at Heinz Field, and it's a solid surface. I mean, it does come up in certain areas, but it is matted down pretty good. So I'm not really that concerned with it. The concerns for me sometimes is the wind there. They've got some conditions that are tricky in kicking game. So we've had to spend a little bit of time with our kickers in making sure, we'll spend a little extra time in pregame because the wind there can impact the game. So I'm more concerned with the wind and the impact in the kicking game than we are with the surface.
Okay, and I have a couple questions looking ahead to the future. I know you're in the present this week, but with the Shamrock Series potentially being moved to Lucas Oil Stadium, are you excited about that? Looking forward to that?
Man, we get a lot of information out here. I don't know that has been decided, but if it is, Lucas Oil is a great venue. Obviously, we've played in great venues, so I think we're always looking for those great venues to play in. Sounds like it would be fun, for us. The atmosphere, the uniforms, that's all part of the Shamrock Series. I haven't given it much thought, and nobody has come to me and said that's where it's going to be.
And one more thing, I know we talked about big games on national television tonight with Stanford and Oregon. I know it's a few weeks away, but when you have some time in a few weeks and go back and watch that game, are there a couple of things you're going to look for, a few key things to learn from Stanford?
Well, we'll always in our film breakdown look at games that match quality opposition, right? I'm not going to go back and look at the maybe the Stanford opener, the Army game, which runs option. I probably wouldn't watch that. I'll look at games like this that are great competition and look at those kinds of games. So certainly this will be a game that we'll go back and take a look at, as we did when they matched up last year, and we were able to look at some things. So these are games that you definitely go back and look at.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.